Ladies and gentlemen, how do we end war? Some people say if we just throw away all the guns, that'll do it. Some people say that if we just come to the understanding that war is carried out by, or started by selfish, rich politicians and businessmen, they never have to fight on the battlefields. We're the ones who, poor people and the average run-of-the-mill Joe has to fight. If we just come to understand that, then we'll quit fighting the wars. The people will all get along. It's just the rich politicians that start them and carry these wars out. They obviously don't know the history of such things as the Revolutionary War and the United States Civil War and the overthrow of the monarchy of Athens in 500 BC. They don't know a great deal of history if they have this attitude. They're basically ignorant idiots. But there are a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas on how to end war. And this is a salient point for me recently because I came across a brilliant statement by Victor Davis Hanson, who, if you are not familiar with, you should go watch every video of every speech he has available on the internet, and maybe even read some of his books, because he is an excellent person to listen to on world history and what's going on in the world right now, Islam and whatever. War ends when one side gives up. It can drag out for 50 years or 100 years or 700 years, but it ends when one side gives up. That's the only thing that can end war. Not both sides, because one of them has to give up before the other. You can't say, well, both sides will give up. If you do, you're just an ignoramus and don't know anything about history. You don't know that the people, not selfish politicians, not businessmen, not the rich, but the people are the ones who start wars. Not all the time, either. Very often it's Hitler ordering the troops across the border or something like that. But if you study Bloody Kansas in 1857 in the United States, you'll see that in spite of the government trying to stop it, the individual people wanted war. They were sick of slavery existing in their area. And the slave drivers were sick of being told not to own slaves anymore. And it was up to the individual people. It was not the choice of rich people, governments, or whatever. Well, an individual who has a user account on YouTube, but I forget what his name is, and he only has 2 videos up. One of the videos is a spoof about coffee, how he loves coffee. This individual has started a meetup group called Individuals Against War. And they recently had their first meetup. And I joined the group. And one of the questions was, who's your favorite anti-war author? And my answer was Ayn Rand. Because I hate war. I think it's terrible. And I really wish people wouldn't do the things that bring it about. And I believe that I know how to stop it much better than people who think that we should just throw away the guns or whatever. So it was disconcerting to get the following message when I joined and RSVP'd for the group. This was a note that this gentleman left for the group. Quote, "This is a meetup group for people against war and Americans against the current wars in particular. If you are not of this mindset, please be respectful and refrain from attending for the purpose of arguing. If you are genuinely curious, and simply want to learn, well, maybe other curious people would be at the meetup and would want to learn from me, maybe. So if you're just curious and want to learn regardless of your position, you're welcome as long as your goal is not to engage in arguments." He hates arguing above all else. He wants to agree. That is exactly what ends war. Is when people say, okay, when one side says, okay, you were right, I was wrong, we give up. But you don't end war by just saying people are too selfish, let's not be so selfish, or there's no reason war helps, it doesn't help anybody. Some people believe slavery is evil and they're willing to fight to prove it. And you can't judge them. You can judge them, but I certainly wouldn't judge someone who's against slavery. Some people believe that you shouldn't have taxation without representation. I wouldn't judge that person. What I would do is I'd judge the country that's taxing them without allowing them representation in government. How do you end war? Now, obviously, this gentleman is not a student of history. He is quite ignorant as far as history goes. He even said to me that World War II wouldn't have happened if America hadn't have gotten into World War I. World War I's there, big mess. As long as America stays home, World War II never would have come about. Which just betrays just an unimaginable ignorance of history. But taking all of history into account, Victor Davis Hanson made a brilliant, brilliant statement when he said, "War ends when one side gives up." And it starts sometimes by selfish people being selfish about protecting their rights, sometimes by stupid people trying to make money, sometimes by dictators who are just power lusters. Sometimes it starts by the people trying to protect what they view as the right way to live. But it ends when one side gives up. So, best of luck to the Individuals Against War group. I hope you all sit around and are curious and learn from each other. Though, if everyone's curious and trying to learn from each other, I wonder who will be there to teach. But as much as I'm against war, I guess they won't benefit from my company, because I would, in fact, go there to impart my views and change other people's minds. And that's my view on war. It ends when one side gives up. That's how we end it.